Imagine the stillness of the Arizona desert on a midsummer night. Midnight approaches. The air is dry, heavy, and utterly silent. Then, suddenly, the silence shatters. At precisely 23:47 on July 14, 2025, the horizon comes alive with sound, the low, guttural roar of diesel engines reverberating across the sand. Headlights slice through the darkness like white-hot blades, and a convoy of armored trucks charges north, raising a storm of dust. This is not a simple smuggling run. This is a militarized incursion, designed to overwhelm any obstacle in its path. Imagine 14 armored pickup trucks, each bristling with mounted M2 Browning, 50 caliber machine guns, their muzzles scanning the desert. Behind them lumber 3 heavy-duty transports carrying more than drugs. Inside are crates of tactical weapons, stacks of cash, and enough narcotics to poison entire cities. Over 60 cartel gunmen ride within, radios crackling, rifles at the ready. They believe the path is clear, that no American force would dare waste time in this barren wasteland. But they are wrong. High above, invisible at 8,000 meters, an MQ-9 Reaper drone circles, watching their every move. On the ground, SEAL Team 6 lies prone along canyon ridges, rifles steady, eyes behind night vision scopes. And orbiting just beyond the radar horizon, an AC-130J Ghost Rider gunship waits, its weapons pre-aimed and ready. Imagine being one of those gunmen, confident in victory, never realizing that every vibration of your engine, every radio transmission, every movement has already been recorded, mapped, and marked for destruction. This is not merely a skirmish at the border. It is a test of dominance. A clash between a cartel determined to project power into the United States and a military machine determined to prove that no incursion goes unanswered. Welcome to Navy Declassified. This is the story of the July 2025 ambush, an operation that turned a desert canyon into a battlefield and a cartel convoy into a warning etched in fire. To grasp the weight of what unfolded, we must first understand the battlefield itself. The southern Arizona desert is not just an empty landscape, it is a frontier. Vast, hostile, and difficult to patrol, it has long been exploited as a corridor for smuggling. For the Sinaloa Cartel, this canyon was not an obstacle, it was opportunity. Imagine a network of routes carved from years of experience, stretching from Hermosillo in northern Mexico, across the border into Texas, Arizona, and California. These are not gangs moving in the shadows. These are paramilitary formations, armored vehicles, mounted heavy weapons, and disciplined radio communications. For the United States, every incursion is more than contraband. It is a direct challenge to sovereignty. If a convoy of this scale were allowed to cross, it would embolden cartel power, reinforce their networks inside the U.S., and project the illusion that the border was theirs to control. This time, America would not let them pass. Behind the scenes, surveillance assets formed an invisible net. The MQ-9 Reaper tracked the convoy from altitude, its multispectral targeting system detecting even the faint heat signatures of engines. Low-altitude RQ-20 Puma drones filled the gaps, feeding imagery to commanders. Seismic sensors buried beneath desert sand awaited the vibrations of heavy tires. Imagine the command center at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, a 12-panel wall of screens, glowing with live drone feeds, intercepted radio chatter, and 3D maps of terrain. Officers from the Air Force, Navy SEALs, and the DEA sat in silence, watching the convoy move deeper into the trap. This was not law enforcement at the border. This was joint service warfare on home soil. The canyon had been chosen not by chance, but by design. Claymores buried, sniper positions marked, electronic warfare units in place, and circling quietly in the darkness. The AC-130J Ghost Rider, armed with a 30mm Ju-23, a Bushmaster cannon, and a 105mm M102 howitzer, waiting for a single word: fire. The cartel imagined the desert protected them. In truth, the desert had been turned into a battlefield from which there was no escape. Every battle begins with a mission. For the United States, the orders from Washington were clear: Nothing crosses the border. Capture or eliminate every target. Secure El Galo, the cartel lieutenant, and seize his communications devices. Imagine the stakes if this convoy had succeeded. The shipment, 2.4 tons of crystal meth, half a ton of fentanyl, and $50 million in cash, would be traded for tactical-grade weapons inside the U.S. Such an exchange would not only fuel the cartel's empire, but arm it for conflicts resembling small wars. This was not about drugs, it was about firepower. For the cartel, the objective was equally blunt: deliver the shipment and prove the border was theirs to breach. A convoy this large, rolling openly into the United States, would serve as propaganda, proof that even the most powerful nation in the world could not stop them. The deeper clash was strategic. For the U.S., this was a test of doctrine. Could drones, electronic warfare, special operations, and precision firepower be fused seamlessly against a non-state enemy on American soil? For the cartel, it was about preserving the myth of invincibility. Imagine the collision course. On one side, a convoy convinced of its dominance. On the other, an ambush designed with patience and precision, waiting for the moment to strike. The mission was set. The objectives were clear. All that remained was the execution. The battlefield of July 14th was not chosen by chance. It was engineered. Every detail, from the angle of fire to the placement of sensors, was designed to seal the convoy's fate long before the first shot. Imagine the canyon, 600 meters long, its walls rising 40 meters high, the gravel road barely wide enough for 2 vehicles. To the untrained eye, it was an empty stretch of desert stone. To Navy SEAL reconnaissance teams, it was the perfect kill zone. For 7 days, SEALs crawled across its ridges and crevices, marking firing positions with infrared paint visible only through night vision goggles. Claymore mines, M18A1s with a fan-shaped blast of 700 steel balls, were buried in staggered lines. Detonator wires snaked back to hidden firing points above. Seismic sensors were calibrated to detect the unique vibrations of armored trucks, while hair-thinned laser tripwires stretched invisibly across choke points. From above, the MQ-9 Reaper painted the canyon in thermal signatures. Every heat plume from an engine, every metallic reflection was catalogued. At lower altitudes, RQ-20 Puma drones scouted the terrain from angles the Reaper could not cover. In the command center, these feeds combined into a 3-dimensional battlefield map, a living picture of the trap. And then came the silent weapons, electronic jammers. Concealed within rocky outcroppings, these compact units were designed to cripple the convoy's nervous system. The moment they activated, GPS screens would freeze, radios would crackle into static, and drivers would find themselves blindfolded in a maze with no exit. High above, the AC-130J Ghost Rider orbited quietly. Armed with a GAU-23, a 30mm Bushmaster cannon, an M102 105mm howitzer, and precision-guided GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, it could unleash destruction in seconds. Yet for days it remained hidden, circling beyond radar, waiting for the word. On the ridgelines, 16 SEALs divided into 4 fire teams took their places. Imagine lying prone in silence, rifle cradled on a bipod, your infrared optics sweeping slowly across the canyon floor. In their ears, the calm voice of the commander repeated the only words that mattered. Hold fire. Wait until the box is closed. The trap was complete. The desert was no longer neutral ground. It was a weapon. While U.S. forces prepared invisibly, the enemy advanced with confidence. To understand the clash, we must first dissect the convoy itself. Imagine 14 armored pickups, each with crude steel plating bolted to doors and windshields. On their roofs sat M2 Browning, 50 caliber heavy machine guns, each capable of spitting 500 rounds per minute. AK-47s and RPG-7 launchers bristled from truck beds, their operators riding high and exposed. Behind them lumbered 3 cargo trucks, heavy with 2.4 tons of methamphetamine, half a ton of fentanyl, and $50 million in vacuum-sealed stacks of cash. On paper, this was a force to be feared. The 50 cals could shred vehicles or suppress entire ridgelines. RPGs posed a lethal threat to light armor or fortified positions. And sheer manpower, over 60 trained and paid gunmen, meant they could overwhelm most adversaries they encountered. Against rival gangs or local patrols, this convoy was nearly unstoppable. But against a modern military ambush, their strengths became weaknesses. The convoy moved as a single column, tight, linear, predictable. With no reconnaissance vehicles far ahead, they had no warning of danger. Their armor, though intimidating, made them slower, easier for drones to track. Their radios, buzzing constantly with coordination, betrayed their positions with every transmission. And their greatest weakness was psychological. Imagine standing exposed in the back of a truck, weapon in hand, believing your enemies are only rival cartels or police checkpoints. The thought of U.S. Special Operations waiting in silence never crossed their minds. Their arrogance was their blindfold. The steel serpent had power, but it also had a fatal flaw. It was about to crawl willingly into the jaws of a canyon designed to devour it whole. As the convoy entered the canyon, every vibration was marked on the command screens. Red dots moved across the map, one after another, until all 17 vehicles were inside the kill box. From the ridgelines, SEALs watched through scopes glowing green. The commander's voice whispered into headsets. Bravo 1, all elements hold, execute. The desert erupted. A single shot triggered the M18A1 Claymores. Thousands of steel balls shredded the lead vehicles. Tires bursting, armored glass splintering, gunners torn from their mounts. The convoy screeched to a halt, its head cut off in fire. Above, the Ghost Rider descended into fury. Its GAU-23, a 30mm Bushmaster cannon, unleashed a torrent of tracer rounds, 200 shells per minute tearing into cabins, ripping armor apart like paper. Then the M102 105mm howitzer spoke. The blast thundered through the canyon, showering rock and shrapnel across the kill zone. Cartel gunmen leapt from their trucks, firing AK-47s blindly into the cliffs. A fighter scrambled onto a roof to man a 50 cal, but before he could fire, a Mk13 Mod 7 sniper round found him. One shot, one kill. At the canyon's rear, a pickup attempted to reverse, but an armored truck already ablaze blocked its path. The Serpent was caged. Radios shrieked static. GPS screens froze. The convoy was deaf, blind, and trapped. The Ghost Rider's fire control system confirmed the kill. Target locked, range 200 meters, weapon free. A precision 105mm shell struck the convoy's center, igniting munitions. The explosion erupted into a fireball, flames licking the canyon walls, secondary blasts echoing as crates of ammunition cooked off. From the ridges, SEALs fired in controlled bursts, M4A1 carbines, Mk17 Scar H rifles, suppressed MP7s. Each shot deliberate, each target falling where it stood. Imagine the horror of knowing every movement was already in someone's crosshairs. By the time the 8th vehicle was obliterated, the convoy no longer advanced. It burned, it broke, and its men were already defeated. The box had closed. The ambush was in full force. The canyon was chaos. Fireballs roared, tracer rounds tore across the night sky, and shattered steel rained down. But amid the destruction, one target mattered above all. El Galo, the Sinaloa lieutenant leading the operation. Imagine watching through the MQ-9 Reaper's infrared feed. Among the dozens of heat signatures scrambling through smoke, one glowed brighter, shielded inside the armored cab of a Ford Raptor. Intelligence analysts cross-referenced his profile in seconds. This was their man. In the command center, his coordinates were marked. Overhead, the Ghost Rider adjusted orbit, dropping a 105mm shell just meters from the truck. The blast shattered its windshield and rocked the vehicle, sending a clear message: you are surrounded, and nowhere is safe. On the ground, SEAL fire teams advanced through wreckage, rifles sweeping arcs of light. Their movement was precise, synchronized with covering fire from above. Imagine pressing forward through burning vehicles, the air thick with smoke and gunpowder. Every shadow a potential threat. Cartel fighters made a desperate stand. One crew prepared an RPG-7 aiming blindly toward the ridges. But a suppressed MP-7 fired from the shadows dropped the gunner before he could launch. The rocket detonated at his feet, killing his comrades. At the canyon's rear, the MQ-9 fired a Hellfire missile into a pickup still mobile, the explosion sealing off the last possible retreat. Then came the decisive moment. Team 1 closed in on the Ford Raptor. A flashbang burst against its side, flooding the cabin with white light and thunder. The side window exploded under rifle fire, and within seconds, the door was ripped open. El Galo was dragged out, pinned to the gravel, wrists bound behind his back. His encrypted laptop and 2 satellite phones were seized immediately. Treasures of intelligence far more valuable than cash or narcotics. Imagine the weight of that capture. For the cartel, El Galo was not just a commander. He was a node in their network, keeper of codes and deals. For the United States, his capture was the transformation of victory from tactical to strategic. Not only was the convoy destroyed, its brain had been severed, and its secrets now lay in American hands. The battle had turned. The ambush was no longer about destruction. It was about dismantling the enemy from within. The shooting slowed. Most cartel resistance had collapsed. Flames consumed the trucks, explosions echoed less frequently, and the canyon floor was a graveyard of twisted steel. But for U.S. forces, the mission was not complete. Imagine the scene lit by portable lamps, their white beams cutting through smoke. SEALs advanced methodically, clearing vehicle after vehicle, rifles steady, flashlights sweeping shattered interiors. Cartel fighters who survived were dragged out, weapons stripped. Those who resisted were neutralized instantly. Those who surrendered were lined up for DEA custody. Weapons were cataloged in bulk, dozens of AK-47s, M2 Browning heavy machine guns, RPG-7s, crates of ammunition. Trucks filled with narcotics and cash were sealed and marked. Each crate was photographed and tagged for evidence. The shipment, worth hundreds of millions, was no longer fuel for the cartel, but evidence in American hands. Overhead, the Ghost Rider shifted to overwatch, its sensors scanning for reinforcements. The MQ-9 maintained high-altitude surveillance, ensuring the battlefield remained secure. Then came a moment of vulnerability. A SEAL, wounded earlier by flying shrapnel, needed evacuation. As the sun began to rise, the operator was stabilized, lifted into the bird, and carried away. Proof that even amid chaos, America leaves no soldier behind. On the ground, the sweep continued. Teams with weapon-mounted lights cleared the last corners, confiscating encrypted radios, laptops, and satellite phones. For intelligence officers, these were the true weapons, windows into the inner workings of a cartel empire. When the last shots faded, the battlefield spoke for itself. 14 armored pickups and 3 heavy-duty trucks destroyed or seized, 47 cartel fighters killed, 19 taken alive, a shipment worth hundreds of millions, drugs, weapons, and cash, captured intact. And for the United States? Only 1 operator lightly wounded, safely evacuated. But the true weight of the battle extended far beyond numbers. Imagine the ripple effect as footage spread across networks and social media. Burning trucks silhouetted against the desert night, bound prisoners under floodlights, DEA agents cataloging stacks of cash. For the Sinaloa Cartel, it was a humiliation, a public shattering of their myth of invincibility at the border. Rivals whispered. Recruits hesitated. Power, once unquestioned, now carried the smell of defeat. For Washington, it was a validation. The operation proved that joint service integration works. SEAL Team 6 on the ground, the Air Force in the sky, the DEA feeding intelligence, all synchronized into a single devastating strike. What had been tested overseas in counterinsurgency was now proven effective on American soil against transnational cartels. Strategically, it was deterrence made visible. Imagine being a cartel commander in Sonora, watching the images. Convoys once thought unstoppable reduced to twisted wrecks in under 30 minutes. The message was unambiguous. If you cross the line, you will not face police, you will face a war machine. Even in Mexico, the shockwaves spread. Politicians could not ignore that the United States was willing to act decisively, even if local enforcement faltered. The cartel problem was no longer just organized crime. It was redefined as a national security threat. For military tacticians, July 14th became a case study. The integration of ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, electronic warfare, precision munitions, and special operations was a textbook ambush. Imagine it studied beside battles of Vietnam and Iraq, but with a 21st century twist. Drones, digital jammers, and joint agency coordination. In less than half an hour, the U.S. had not only annihilated a convoy, but also reshaped the battlefield of perception. The outcome was not destruction alone, it was the demonstration of a doctrine. The ambush in the Arizona desert was more than a firefight, it was a declaration. The first lesson: awareness is dominance. Imagine the patience of tracking a single convoy for 72 hours with satellites, drones, and sensors. America proved that true power does not come from shooting first, but from knowing exactly when to strike. The second lesson: control the battle space. By planting seismic sensors, burying claymores, concealing jammers, and pre-aiming every weapon, U.S. forces transformed a canyon into a perfect kill box. The cartel never realized the ground beneath their tires had already been turned into a weapon. The third lesson: integration is supremacy. This was not one branch or one unit. It was a fusion of Navy SEALs, Air Force Ghost Riders, MQ-9 Reapers, DEA infiltrators, and electronic warfare teams. Imagine a symphony of forces, each note precise, each strike timed to perfection. That is modern American warfare. And finally, deterrence is built on certainty. Capturing El Galo alive, along with his encrypted laptop and satellite phones, did more than disrupt one mission. It fractured networks, exposed allies, and shattered confidence across the cartel chain of command. For every rival watching, the message was unmistakable. The United States waits, watches, and when the time comes, strikes without mercy. Imagine being any cartel commander after July 2025. Every convoy, every route, every night drive into the desert could be another canyon, another ambush, another box with its teeth waiting to snap shut. For the cartels, the July ambush was a warning etched in fire. For the United States, it was reassurance that decades of combat experience abroad had forged a force capable of defending its own borders with devastating precision. The Arizona desert of July 14th was not just a battlefield. It was a message. America will defend its red lines, anywhere, anytime, with weapons seen and unseen.